Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Jerseys with Josh. So glad you joined us. This channel is dedicated to all things related to NHL game-worn jerseys. Please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Give a thumbs up to the video if you like the content. It means an absolute ton. You can follow me on Instagram at @JerseysJosh. Shoot me a DM if you'd like to be featured on the show. That said, today I'm so pleased to welcome Tom Roark to the show. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure to be with you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. So, folks, let me give you a little bit of background on Tom. Tom has an incredible collection of NHL memorabilia. He's a huge Columbus Blue Jacket supporter. He and I first connected on the Blue Jackets Facebook group. So, Tom, fill us in. How did you become a Blue Jackets fan in the first place?
Yeah, so it actually goes back to kind of pre Blue Jackets era. I actually, young adult age, college, followed the Columbus Chill, which was our ECHL team at the time. There was actually some talk in Columbus. We really didn't have any major league teams at the time. We had Ohio State Athletics, but no like soccer or NBA or NFL or anything like that. And they really were, Columbus was really hungry for a major league sports franchise and really be considered a major league town. And the interesting thing around that time period is when Peter Karmanos was looking to move the Hartford Whalers. And at one point, there was literally a discussion about Columbus potentially being on the short list with Carolina to be the permanent home. Long story short was there was discussion about them potentially using a hangar at the airport for a temporary arena because there wasn't one to house that was hockey specific other than at Ohio State. And basically Karmanos ended up working out a deal in Carolina. But I think that kind of whetted the appetite for people in Columbus. It was interesting. There was a bond issue that went on, the levy that actually failed. And think about the economics back in the mid to early 90s. I think there was a lot of sentiment about folks didn't really want to make team owners, rich team owners richer. But there was a group of private business folks led by the McConnell family, who have Worthington Industries, Nationwide Insurance, the Dispatch, the Wolf family, that actually decided to do private money and put a arena together. And they were able to do that downtown Columbus. And then the Jackets and the Wild both joined and started play in 2000. And so I was really, really hooked. I was fortunate enough to have a job where I worked for one of the sponsors and was able to get tickets through work and do some things like that. So definitely had some packages when my kids were young, and I've continued that to this day. But definitely had me hooked. I've moved to Michigan about 7 years ago for work, but have definitely stayed loyal, and my man cave moved with me.
That's absolutely wonderful. Very cool story. Interesting how sports have really kind of taken off in Columbus. Tell me how you got into collecting game worn and game used items along the way.
Yeah, really, Jackets wise, and I had three small kids back then, and money just didn't grow on trees. And so I wasn't really big into collectibles. I mean, obviously picked up like posters and things like that if we went to the game or we went to some meet and greets and things like that. But we were fortunate. My youngest daughter was probably about 7 years old, and we won a jersey off your back raffle for a Christian Huselius jersey at the final game of the season against Detroit, one of the years that they did make it to the playoffs. And so that was my first game worn jersey. And for years, it really was my only one. I actually got heavy into sticks and helmets and gloves and a lot of other things. Went on an odyssey. I'm still trying to collect one game used stick from every Blue Jacket player that ever played one NHL game, which is quite a feat. But I'm on my way there. I have about, I think 430 or 440 game used sticks, but definitely just kind of, it's one of those things where as I've moved and have more room and you get older and you have more income, you're like just kind of chasing some of those things, particularly like the early jerseys and things that just kind of remind you the early days of the franchise, or players that you just love seeing on the ice, or you had a chance to kind of meet after a practice or in person, that just really kind of stuck with you. So yeah, the collecting bug bit, and over the last 3 or 4 years, I've gotten more into jerseys. I think I'm up over maybe 100 or 130 Blue Jackets jerseys. So just I guess personality wise, if I go big. So kind of when the bug bit, it bit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you've done a phenomenal job documenting your collection. I'll put the link to your Smug Mug page in the description of this video, so folks who want to see it can take a look. But let's dive in a little bit, and
Sounds
let's
good.
start with a Rick Nash alternate you have from 2005, 2006. I'll post it up on the screen. Yeah, go ahead and show it. Tell me about this jersey.
Yeah, so there's a couple unique or neat things about this, and I think anybody that I've worked or talked to in the collectible world, whether they're Jackets fans or non-Jackets fans, kind of know that Rick Nash is probably the number one focus of my personal collection. I just definitely, I think, watching the Jackets from the start, where he was really, I think, the first face of the franchise, really somebody that was first NHL level superstar, I would say, from the Jackets, particularly the year that he and Ginla tied for the Rocket Richard, and he ended up on the cover of, I think it was one of the early 2K NHL games. So he really sort of transcended just the Blue Jackets, and I think most even casual hockey fans knew who he was, especially because of his play in the Olympics for Team Canada. And so he's always been somebody that I've loved and wanted to collect. Definitely the game used sticks of his were pretty unattainable and almost impossible to find when he was playing. His jerseys are even harder to find, particularly the Columbus era ones. So I was lucky here the last couple of years to get a hold of this one. And the other thing that's interesting is this is their what they kind of nicknamed the Tide and True, which was the first, third, or first alternate jersey for the Jackets. So they're actually, I think, were the Coho made, but with the Reebok label put on for those years. And this one actually has his alternate A, because he wasn't captain at that point. But just kind of reminds me, I probably saw him, hopefully at one point saw him in person in this jersey. So it really just kind of brings back some cool memories. And for me, it's kind of one of the throwbacks, and it was really, one of the things where one of the last jerseys I would ever consider selling or get rid of, for sure.
It's gorgeous. I'll put the picture up real quick so everybody can see it kind of zoomed out. And one thing I noticed is the laces, the tie downs. I think they look really stellar on this jersey. I think they really nailed it. And it's interesting that it's got two different patches on each shoulder.
Yeah. They did the what they call the kind of they've got this one, which has the Civil War hat, which has kind of become a standby, which they've used on other years of the jerseys. And there's actually, you can see here, there's a nice board burn or nice board tear on there, which may be hard to see on there, which is really kind of cool too. See if I can hold that up again real quick. Yeah, there's a cut right in here where I almost, it's hard, it's on the black, so it's hard
Yeah,
to see,
it comes through. Yeah.
And then the other thing is this, what they call the cross sticks, or the kind of intertwined CB, and then the stick is really the J. So that's kind of become one of their was used heavily in the early days, for sure. And we'll talk about the stinger. I know you want to talk about the stinger at one point too, but yeah, that was kind of definitely the fluorescent green was more prominent in the early years. The other interesting thing on that Tide and True was they did a marketing campaign when they teased the rolling out of the third jersey, because the Columbus obviously only had a home and away up until that point. And they did a really cool thing where they basically, the posters and commercials and everything just showed the laces. So that's really all you could see, the ticket stubs, the posters in the arena and everything. And then they had the game where they rolled it out and put it on the ice, and it's cool. To me, I think it's just one of the more striking ones that they've had in their history.
It's definitely gorgeous. So we're going to then fast forward a little bit. We've got Rick Nash as an alternate captain 0506. Now moving forward to his jersey retirement. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so obviously I have season tickets. I don't, being so far away, I don't have full season. I have partial season tickets. But when they did the announcements at the beginning of the year that they were going to retire his jersey, I knew I had to be there. And the other thing that kind of made it extra special when we go to some of the other ones was Nick Foligno was obviously on the Bruins and is another focus on my collection. So it was really cool to obviously have the two of them on the ice at the same time. But this one is Cole Sillinger. And so it really, unfortunately, it's not much different than the regular jersey, except it does have the Rick Nash retirement patch, which they wore. They did do an interesting thing where they did wear, all the players wore the patch and a number 61 warm up, and then the team's foundation raffled those off, and then the jerseys for the entire game went through MyGray's system and were auctioned off. But the other kind of cool detail, they've gotten really more creative with the set tags in recent years. They did a set tag in this one, which is maybe a little harder to see, but there's actually a picture of Rick Nash coming off the ice back when he played, and I think that was his last game before the trade. So kind of cool to have that in there as well. And they've done like I said, they've done a couple things like that with some other uniform sets. But Cole Sillinger, I kind of gravitated to in the beginning. He's obviously 18. He was the youngest player to play in the NHL this year. My son and I had an opportunity to go up to the NHL development camp in Traverse City over the summer prior to the season. And Cole Sillinger was one of the team members that the Jackets sent there to play. And it was just awesome to see him play in person. And my son and I kind of left that tournament thinking, man, this kid actually has a shot of playing. And you're thinking, at 18, probably not. They're going to, send him back, let him get a year or two under his belt. And he stuck and stayed. And then the nice thing was his dad, Mike Sillinger, obviously pretty well traveled in the NHL, but played in Columbus, and was another just kind of grit player that definitely loved seeing when he played there. And I don't have it yet, but I actually did purchase Sillinger's first gold jersey. So I'm waiting on that one, which will be a nice add to the collection there as well.
Yeah, definitely. Really nice that they're a part of the MyGray program. Makes it a lot easier to pick up the shirts that you want. So shout out to the MyGray group there and your crew. Let's talk goalies. You've got one of my favorites, just a funny guy. Let's talk about Bob. What about Bob?
Yeah, let me grab that. Probably should have.
That's fine. I'll put it up right here.
Yeah, the Bobrovsky, the goalie jerseys, particularly Bobrovsky and Korpisalo and Merzlikins, the newer ones have historically been so expensive. But the nice thing about Bob is he's one of the players that typically wears a jersey per period. So there ends up being there was a little bit more of his that floated around. I was able to make a trade for this one, and I'll hold it up even a little bit more because there's just some killer scuffs and tears and marks on them, which I think is one of the cool things that I like about the goalie jerseys. Obviously the white shows that really well. The other interesting thing about this one was this year was the year where actually Bob had the single game shutout record of 54 for the Blue Jackets back when they played the Capitals in the playoffs. So this was worn at least one period through that. Got a couple photo matches, and then obviously in the bubble a couple years ago, Korpisalo had the 85 save in a single game against the Lightning in the bubble that obviously set the complete NHL record and blew away the previous record that Bob had. But yeah, he's really kind of an intense guy and just one of but definitely had some really good really good years and with the Jackets, and just have loved his stuff. And so I'm fortunate enough to have a couple of his. And like I said, it's got some really nice wear on it.
Now, does it have a fun tag as well? I mean, while we're on the topic, I got this Robinson this year that I'm wearing right now. And it was like an Easter egg. I opened it up and there was a picture of the city of Columbus. And I was like, this is really cool.
Yeah, this one doesn't. This one just has a basic. And when we get to the reverse retro, they did a bunch of really cool things for all the different the sets during the 20th anniversary.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. So there's the back of Bob. Very, very cool jersey. Love how it looks. Nice piece of the collection. And so we'll go back in time a little bit here. And we're going to talk about Columbus's first season in the NHL. What do you got?
Yeah, well, Jean-Luc Grandpierre, and I like this one for a couple reasons. One, Jean-Luc Grandpierre just is a great guy. If you get a chance to run into him, he currently does the TV broadcast for Bally Sports, so he's around the team and around the arena, and is just always really approachable, and has stayed one of the Jackets alumni that stayed local. Just also like the fact that the first year these jerseys, I think, are probably, I mean, just up there, just some of the most expensive ones that we can get as Jackets collectors now, just because obviously the rarity of them. I've been fortunate enough to have a couple different players, and I've traded some a couple times. The interesting thing on this, when you talk about set tags, they had a different team that did the uniforms back then, and so they actually did a tag behind the crest, which was different and unique, and is one of the only years that they did that. Most of the following years they either moved to a tag or they were like silk screened into the hem. And then the other thing that I think is interesting, that I know that besides the inaugural year patch, was it has Stinger on the one shoulder, which the Blue Jackets name was derived from the Civil War era, and so they kind of played off of that, and also played off of the B with the Yellow Jackets. And so Stinger is the mascot they still use today, but he was used way more prominent on the uniforms back then. Now he's just basically a in arena mascot and those kind of things, some of the marketing things, but not necessarily used on the uniforms. And I think there's a lot of Jackets purists. Some of them gravitate to the newer Cannon design, the third jersey design, the cream and blue, but I think there's a lot of purists that go back in time that kind of wish they had Stinger on the current jersey.
Put me in that camp. Bring Stinger back.
Yeah, and this was a CCM jersey, but I know we've got another one we'll talk about, but the design was a little bit different. It's almost like it's got a little gradient, kind of white kind of ombre gradient kind of thing to it when you see it in person, which is a little bit different. So and there was Columbus really, there's some prototypes and stuff out there. Columbus really kind of, I guess, experimented with several different kind of designs and things like that, and so there's some really cool prototypes out there that you can find as well.
That's really neat, and a great player. I think he spent some time with my Sabres too back in the day.
Yeah, I think he was actually initially a Sabres draft pick, to be honest with you.
Amazing. Well, that's a very, very cool inaugural season. Doesn't get much better. That's what caused me to pull the trigger on a Kraken jersey, because once that first year passes, man, they are hard to come by. Yeah,
and I just as a fan of the NHL, think the Kraken logo and jerseys were really well done. Especially the away jersey I just think looks stunning. Did get in on a couple of those auctions, never was able to be successful and win one. They went a little high, but definitely maybe we'll be able to trade for one at some point down the road.
Absolutely, no doubt. So we looked at the Blue Jackets inaugural. We're going to fast forward about, let's say 20 years. Let's talk a little Line A.
Yeah, and I was actually fortunate enough. I had purchased a couple jerseys from the Rick Nash retirement night, and I was able to do a package deal with another collector, and was able to pick up the Patrick Line. So it's nice. Number one, I just like him as a player. I think he obviously had some just documented struggles after the trade, but really started to rebound this year. And I think with the coaching change and Jake Voracek coming and everything else, really feel like he's potentially going to have even a bigger breakout season next year. So this is the 20th anniversary. The white Adidas. The nice thing I'll show you here is this one actually, I had to double check. This one has the Columbus City Hall as the set tag picture, and there's been
So
some
cool.
interesting. They did. We'll talk about the reverse retro, but then there was a previous season actually where just kind of as I think as a joke, the equipment manager, they did the scene of the two guys from the Big Lebowski setting next to each other at the bowling alley. And so there's been some really kind of cool offbeat set tags. But yeah, Line A, I like a lot. I actually at one point had his first stick he used in his very first game with the Blue Jackets. Kind of made some trades to pick up some other stuff, and I do have another Line A game used, but it's actually from his Winnipeg days. But yeah, I like this one. There is some nice. The Adidas tend to show a little bit of wear. I mean, so there's a couple loose strings and a couple little board marks and things on that, particularly on the white, that are nicer to find. But the thing I think I struggle with, and I know some other folks that you've had on your podcast, I'm not a real good photo matching guy, and I probably need to do way more research on a lot of them really to kind of document a lot of the history and points and things like that. I pretty much, if I've bought it from My Gray, I kind of know what the pedigree is, but some of the ones I've picked up in the secondary market or trades, I probably need to go back and do a little more research on, which would be fun, but time don't always have time to do that.
For sure. I think that's probably a shout out to you there, Mike. I'm sure you'll be watching at some point. I'll put a link up to the video that we did for anybody who wants to see it on how to photo match. But you've come across Mike as well in the forums.
I sure have, and he's just a great guy. I actually had a Sergachev stick that he was interested in that was used that brief rookie period for him in Montreal, and I really didn't have a lot of information on it. It still actually had a Montreal Forum price tag on it, and he was interested in if it was game used, but like within 2 days came back and said, hey, here's all the photo matches and here's where it was used. And it was actually, I think, warm-up used, didn't make it into a game. So it didn't fit with what he needed in his collection. But I was like, man, I'm impressed at how quick you did that. And it was really cool, number one, that he shared the information. But yeah, he's been super to deal with. And I think that's true of most. I mean, I think every hobby, there's kind of a few bad apples that try to come in from time to time, but for the most part, I feel like I've made some really good friends. I've had the opportunity to meet tons of people in person that I have done some deals with just through some of the message boards and things like that. And really cool to get to see those people in public. And sometimes they'll send you a message and say, hey, I found this, and do you want me to pick this up for you? And that, and it's just kind of cool that people go out of their way. And I know a lot of times try to throw like an extra something in the box, and when we do a trade or something, just to try to help people out. And it's really just kind of cool to see that it's a hobby where people really do try to help each other and are really complimentary that way.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, here you are, and the others who have come on the show has just been out of the graciousness of the hobby. So yeah, I'm really grateful, and we still got a couple to talk through. So let's roll. The reverse retro program has been exceedingly popular. Columbus, of course, participated, as did everybody else. You've got a really neat one.
Yeah, and I actually, so it's Nick Foligno. So obviously with the C, he was captain at the time. And I think when they announced the program, part of me kind of, I don't know that I was upset. Part of me just kind of scratched my head a little bit. And I'm like, oh, it's almost like a money grab, right? You're like, I was kind of curious. My original thought was it would have been cool if they took the original jersey that the Jackets, the inaugural one that we showed, like the Grand Pierre, if they used the exact same jersey And then I think it would have been cool if Columbus had played Chicago like they did, who was their very first game, and they basically wore the same style jersey 20 years later. But I love the red. I mean, this is obviously the first Jackets jersey that uses, I think, this much red. And so it does have the crossed, I guess what they call the cross stick or the CBJ. It does have the same kind of cannons, which I think a lot of people were disappointed that they didn't do like a stinger on the on a shoulder, but they did do the stars on the sleeves to kind of pay a little tribute to the Tide and True. So it kind of combines the Tide and True with some of the elements of the inaugural. And I'll take a look at the set tag here because I don't remember. Yeah, this one's actually, they did the original team photo from the very first year, which I think was really kind of a cool touch as well. I actually had bought an Eric Robinson reverse retro, was actually the one I had bought from My Gray, and it had a really nice tear in the sleeve, in the shoulders, and was really nice. And then I had an opportunity to do a trade, and Nick Foligno and Nash and Cam Atkinson are probably the three main guys that my collection focuses on. So to obviously pick up a Foligno, even though it didn't really have any drastic wear, but to have that in my collection, I've got some of his specialty warm-ups and other game used ones. But to me, it's just really kind of a really cool crisp. And this is the only reverse retro, is the only non-game worn jersey that I actually own that I would wear to a game, just because it was just, for me, I just thought it was really just the one of the coolest designs. And it does have the CBJ, and then it's got 00 for 2000 in the collar as well too.
Love it. I love it. I think they did a great job. The vast majority of jerseys came out great. Columbus, I think, is one of them that came out really nicely.
Yeah, the Red Wings fans didn't really like theirs. They thought it looked like a practice jersey. But yeah, no, I agree with you. I think they really exceeded everybody's expectations.
Now you've got the last jersey we're going to talk about is a one that is, I think, really unique. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, definitely unique, and I'm still really trying to get a little more information on it too. So it looks on the surface, it looks like very similar to the inaugural year. It's actually a pro player, which most folks, if you do some research and look back at particularly in Columbus, I don't know if it was true for every team, but late 90, like 98, 99, right around the 2000. There were a pro player. There was definitely some versions that were made, authentic versions that were made, or retail versions. And I think at one point Columbus, or maybe the NHL, thought pro player was going to be the official jersey, I think in 2000. But it's got the stinger on the sleeves. But the interesting thing is, if you look on the back, it's got the name Howe and number 9. And so, yeah, that actually is Mr. Hockey Gordie Howe. And it's actually signed on the 9 by Gordie Howe. And I was able to pick this up through Frozen Pond did a auction of the personal effects of Gordie and Mark Howe. And so there was a lot of stuff from, playing days, and then definitely from Gordie, from his time from traveling around the NHL. And so the information that they had, that Mark had, was that it was used for an appearance. So I'm trying to determine, based on the fact that it's a pro player, it could have either been pre puck drop in 2000, or it could have just been the team could have actually made it up for him in 2000. It could have been an appearance at the arena, or even potentially dropped a puck prior to a game. So I'm really would love to find a photo of him wearing it to go with that. But yeah, I think it's really, really cool. It's being in Michigan now, I admire the original 6, and so I have an opportunity to go down and see even the Jackets play in Detroit. And for me, it's kind of like a really kind of cool way to combine my love of the Blue Jackets, but also have some respect for the old school hockey. So I really like that.
I think that's really cool. Anybody who's watching, If you've got any insight, any pictures from an event with Gordie Howe in a Blue Jackets jersey, post it up in the comments. We can get you in touch with Tom, and boy, that would be interesting. Tom, it's been great to chat Blue Jackets with you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Sorry, thanks for coming on to the show, Tom.
You're welcome. I appreciate it, Josh. Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to continuing to talk to you and other collectors. And definitely, if anybody wants to reach out or get a hold of me through you, and that's got anything that they want to trade or anything like that, would love to do it. Like I said, just enjoy getting a chance to meet other collectors.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Well, thanks very much again for coming. Thanks everyone for watching. Please do hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And in the meantime, enjoy the hobby. Bye, everyone.